Well, Happy New Year. This is the first Church Answers podcast of 2025.
Let's make it futuristic.
Let's do it. Let's
Yeah.
let's talk about, since we're technically recording this in 2024, we're living right now in the future.
Ooh, that's kind of eerie.
As we're recording this. So it is the new year. We're super excited to have you with us today. If you're listening with us, my name is Jess Rayner. I'm with my dad, Thom Rayner, and we're going to be talking about a future that is here, but also a future that we don't know where it's going. We're going to be talking about AI, or artificial intelligence, and we're going to talk about what it means for the church.
And I want you to think about this. This is my third major update on AI.
Okay. And I you know what? We'll probably talk about this. I don't even know how long AI has been around. It feels like it's been around probably a lot longer than what it actually has been around. But the fact that it is constantly updating, and the church is constantly having to respond to what AI is, means we'll probably have a lot more future podcasts about technology, specifically AI as well. But before we get started, we do want to thank Cheney Associates, our sponsor for this podcast. If you don't know what they do, let me tell you, they are an incredible accounting firm specifically for the church. If you are looking, as you're starting off this year, you're looking at, hey, how do we change up our accounting this year? How do we get more help? Maybe there's some things that you realize that you need to do from a financial standpoint as a church. Reach out to Cheney Associates. They will be glad to help you. They're the best there is for the church, which is why we are so glad to partner with them and for them to be our sponsor of this podcast. So Cheney Associates, check them out, look them up, let them make an impact. It'll change the future of your church, probably better than AI. So
For sure. I do want to say this, and maybe Alana, when I say Alana, she's in the background, so you don't see her here, but she's the producer of all of our podcasts. Maybe Alana can find it. I wrote a blog post sometime this 2024. Got to get my dates right. In 2024, about our position on AI as content creators at Church Answers.
Right.
And it's a position that we took that, hey, we wanted to say, we'll sometimes use AI for marketing. We'll sometimes use AI for more of the non-content type of delivery. Mm-hmm. But everything that you see in our or hear in our podcast or see in our podcast, all the written content, the only time we will use AI is to proofread it, and not to proofread it to rewrite it. We just proofread it in a Grammarly type of way. So we've put a stake in the ground. I'm sure we're going to have to change things as they come along, but that's where we are. I want people to know that when they're reading us, hearing us, or seeing us, it's still coming from our brain and not from an artificial intelligent brain.
Yeah. And the older you get, the scarier that gets. So it coming from your brain.
Yes, it is. I attest to that totally.
We'll talk about AI today, artificial intelligence, and what does it mean for the local church? I mean, there's lots of different potential directions that we could go for this. You know, what does it mean? I'm thinking, for me as a local pastor, how do I use it? And as a local pastor, should I use it? We're talking about, you know, I'm thinking as a local pastor, what is my congregation using it for? What are they facing? What's the technology doing? The church is going to be, if we're not already, forced to respond to AI. And I know there's actually some churches out there that have even, I think there was a church out there that did a full AI service. I should have looked it up before this podcast.
You're correct on that. I was about to guess what the church was in terms of denomination. I'm going to hold off on that because I may be wrong, but they had the entire sermon AI produced.
Yeah, even with
all the worship service, the music too.
Okay, it was all, and even it was a AI generated image, yes. Right? There wasn't a live person. It was full
Push
AI.
the button. Just so much I could say.
Yeah.
I feel so old fashioned sometimes when I talk about AI.
Yeah. I never saw that. It's just, but the point I'm making, the reality exists. AI is here, and how is the church going to respond? So we're going to talk about a few things here, specific for AI. And there are some good there. You know, I could quickly go, oh, I don't know this about AI, but there's also some good things. The first one is evangelistic opportunities.
You know, think back when you first realized that just the internet could give you evangelistic opportunities. The internet seems so old-fashioned now. compared to AI, which travels along the internet. It'll probably have its own independent mode soon and take over the world. But we had these same discussions. Well, is it good or bad? Like any tool of humanity, it can be used for good or bad.
Hmm.
The good news is it can be used very good. The bad news, it can be used totally for evil.
Right.
So you have both of those there. Now, the evangelistic opportunities are very much there. We've had a ministry partnership for some time with Vista Reach. And
Hmm.
Vista Reach is this organization. And to you guys at Vista Reach, forgive me if I'm not getting this right. It's in the sponsorship sport. I just want to talk about it.
Right.
Incredible, incredible opportunity to find out who has needs in your community. One example, I think they reach like 61 different social platforms. Somebody types into one of those social platforms and say, "I'm hurting, I need prayer." Well, this AI powered can pick up the word prayer and say, "Can I help you?"
Okay. All right. So, if I'm listening this first time, I'm already like, okay, hold up. AI, evangelistic opportunities, visitor reach. So you're saying there's a company out there, Visitor Reach, who uses artificial intelligence to monitor different social media platforms, that if someone from your community or someone from your church says something, the AI can then kind of alert you as a church leader,
Correct.
and either the AI can respond or the church can respond. Am I putting that in a
You got everything right that I
okay?
know of about it, and it's public. They're not going into secret stuff. This is out for public viewing. So someone says, "I need prayer." Okay, it has a certain geographical area that it covers.
Okay.
There's someone there that can then respond. How can I help you? You can have some AI generated messages, but it's ultimately to lead to human contact. And many churches have shared the gospel, and many churches are growing through this. So that is a very advanced form where someone just, "Hey, is there a church near me?" Putting in Siri, that would be another example.
Right.
It can pick that up.
Right.
Is there a church near me? And then all of a sudden, "Hey, we're right here. Is there something we can do for you?"
Yep. So AI is being used right now to be a connector
It is.
between someone who has a need or a question to a local church. And
Exactly.
so Visitor Reach in particular, this company has figured this out. It sounds like it. I don't know if it's proprietary with them, but at least they're the ones that are utilizing it.
It's proprietary. It's designed by some Amazon guys.
Okay, so it's
Christian.
proprietary to them. So again, when you're talking AI, it's like, okay, this is a whole new world. As a church leader, is it something I could even be using? Well, Visitor Reach just found a way to use this as a way to connect people who are distressed and dejected, like sheep
Like
without a
sheep without a
shepherd.
shepherd.
They're out there, and two, people are putting their lives on the internet. And so, I mean, you got to ask yourself, and I think now that we're having this conversation, I think Visitor Reach also can, if you're to work with them, you can determine how much you want that to happen or
Mm-hmm.
when you want it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you have a dedicated volunteer who maybe once a day goes and checks it and figures out a way to connect with someone. So it's a way to potentially take what is a social media, what is a non-human interaction, and create a human interaction out of it. So AI is being used to
That's a
create
goal to get it in person.
to get human interaction. So there are evangelistic opportunities. Can you predict maybe what the future? I like doing this. I like getting into your brain a little bit.
I
Would
think
you
people
think?
like those things.
Well, listen, you're my dad, but you are a really smart guy. I'm not just saying that because you're my dad. You really are a smart guy, and you've always had a knack for kind of picking up. You're not always right, but you got a pretty good track record of going, the church is really heading this direction. Could you even speculate what could be ahead with evangelism and AI? Any thought on that?
Yeah. In fact, I've been having conversations with AI. I call him Franklin. He calls me Tom.
Okay, that's yeah. I'm just gonna say that's a problem right there.
Well, I've been having conversations with Franklin, and I've been asking Franklin as he begins to peel back different layers, how can AI identify where lostness is?
Hmm.
And it's taken a little while, but we're beginning to get there. I know that there's some algorithms that can say this socioeconomic, this thing, probably not a Christian involved in this, but I'm just wondering if one person just doing AI can figure out where unreached people groups are in our city. And
So essentially, it's a research tool.
it's a great research tool for me. Can I give you? I think I told you this one off recording, but I'm going to tell the audience. Uh, we have the richest repository of information about churches of anywhere I know on a practical ministry level.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we'll put if you're not a part of Church Answers membership, we have the entry level at $9.97. This was not meant to be a plug, but it's about to be a plug because I really want you to get it. It has a lot of benefits to it. One of the benefits is you can ask a question 24/7.
Right.
Right now, it's in a forum-like place with experts and with peer review, and it's a very safe place. We're about to go to having office hours where you can come talk to us during via Zoom. But anyway, this I did not realize this until recently. This particular tool, I think we've had it 9 or 10 years. It's proprietary design by us, and I went back to the very beginning of the first time someone asked a question to yesterday, and I ranked them. And basically, it showed me what leaders are asking about the church,
Hmm.
perceived needs by church leaders. And all of a sudden, I'm just saying, wow, I knew this was a perceived need, but I did not know how big of a need it was.
Right.
So I then began to look at what Church Answers did, and we'll get back to well, this kind of AI in the church.
It is.
But one of the things that I did with AI as I was going through this, and I said, how can we meet those needs? And I'm thinking Church Answers. And
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, I've been taking Church Answers in a particular direction. I'm not going to start getting into business strategy or anything like that. This has pulled me almost, I'm not going to say 180, but this has pulled me back significantly to another direction
Okay.
because I saw where we could best meet the needs of churches where they're wanting a ton of people meeting the needs of churches.
Okay. So you used your data that we have at Church Answers, and again, we're talking about Church Answers Central. It's an online forum, and if you're not a part of this, I know this is our first podcast of the year. This is something you should invest in for the rest of the year. It is. I check it once a day. I go on there, and I just read. I'm more of a lurker than a poster.
Yeah,
But
we get what did I say? 11,000, 10,600. I had the number in front of me.
11,000.
11,000 visits a month, and many of them are just people who are reading it who are part of the membership.
Yeah, the wealth of information is on there, and then I too I post occasionally. I like to jump in there. I'll say some things every so often, but I go on at least once a day and I check it at least once a day, and it's a wealth of information. What we have at Church Answers is that information, but what you're saying is you have taken that information, AI has helped you decipher the information, and you use it now as a research tool
To help churches.
And so
Yep.
we're talking about the future. You know, what can AI be used? And if you're listening to this and you're maybe a local church, you're like, well, I don't know if I could exactly use that. The point is that there are going to be increased opportunities down the road. AI, like you said, by itself is not necessarily a bad thing. It's how it's used. This is a way that I think church leaders can go, is there an opportunity, just to get some information that could be potentially evangelistic? One thing you can do as a church leader is use this for people who maybe will come to your church. We have watched over the years that the front doors, the physical front door of the church is no longer the front door of the church. The front door of the church is the church website, specifically the live stream.
Right.
I believe it wholeheartedly that most people will visit a church only after they've watched a live stream.
Totally agree.
And if your church, this is a side note, if your church doesn't have a live stream, please start one.
If church doesn't have a website, please get one.
If you don't have a website, please get one. Because visitors are going to look for the website and the live stream, and they're going to go. They're not going to visit a church until they actually look at that.
Exactly.
It used to be social media. It used to be just a website. Now it's the live stream. That is the front door. There's a way through technology, through AI, maybe there's an opportunity to help people feel more comfortable potentially visiting your church. Walk us through the opportunity for virtual tours of your church facility and how AI can help with that.
Here's what I know about it at this point. I feel certain that there's somebody that's already designed it where you take someone through the church as if they're walking through the church, which is basic software, and then you maybe somehow connect it to a streaming service and put it all together. I've seen parts of it, but it won't be that much longer before churches will be able to post, here's our church. and you have them going to the nursery or to the preschool area. You have them going to the worship service. All of those are being developed right now. If they haven't been developed, I looked at it in a futuristic article that I read that basically is saying this is going to be a lot of help for organizations that have a regular flow of people coming. They were
Right.
talking about theaters and things like that. Here are the restrooms. Well, you're going to be able to do it for churches. AI is connecting all of those things together. The live stream, some doing some videos of the kids, uh, maybe even using Google Maps and putting it all together and saying you can give a tour and introduce your church this way.
Yeah. If you're thinking, well, I don't even know how to do that. Like, how is a local church? Like, can I do that? I, I would say, again, I'm very limited in my AI knowledge, so I'm gonna ask you, is this right? Essentially, someone could go just take their cell phone, go walk through their church building, just record it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they could go to an AI platform and say, "Hey, create a walkthrough welcome video, edit it for me, put it together, and then you can use that on your website."
Absolutely.
Okay.
Some of it may be just basic chat GPT, or some of it may be some of the specialty AI, like for facilities and other things. So it's out there.
Okay. It's essentially becomes a video editor.
Hmm.
Very
It
like,
is a video editor. Yeah.
but that again, we're talking about, hey, if right now at the beginning of 2025, what do we know about AI? How as a church leader can you use that? There's some of these things that you would never thought, maybe you're a church and you're sitting at 50 people and you're like, there's no way I could do a virtual walkthrough. Well, it's a lot more accessible maybe than you think, and that can be a really good thing, especially for families.
Yep.
I know so often you do the live stream, and now that we're talking about this, I mean, what would it be like if you did a walkthrough of your kids ministry?
That's part of it. It's actually that's what it said for churches coming up.
Okay, and that for families, especially young families.
Hey,
um,
here's your security check-in system. One of the great priorities of the parents. Oh, we'd like you to meet the officer that is in our services that
hmm,
protects everyone.
man, that could be the and I said the new front door is the live stream, but that would be the other part of the front door. It's people feeling like they've been in your building before they've actually been in your building, or they've been a part of the service before they've been a part of the service.
Exactly.
Okay, all right, I like that one. Again, I can be a curmudgeon a little bit when it comes to AI. I own it, but I like that one. I
There
like
more
that
to
one.
like.
There
There
it
more
is.
to
There it is.
like on this.
What about this one? The opportunity to demonstrate value in human to human connections.
All
So
right.
using AI to demonstrate value in the human to human connection.
All right, let's talk about using AI. Let's use that phrase first that I have in the show notes. When I say using AI, I'm saying that the more people use AI, the greater the hunger there's going to be for human to human connections.
Okay.
That's the connection there. We're seeing that. I saw that in the research that I did for my upcoming book, The Anxious Generation Goes to Church, how much now they're valuing more and more human, even if they don't know it, even if they're on their phone all the time, they get involved with some person in the church, and all of a sudden their eyes are open to a whole new world, like ours may have been when we saw our first video game. By the way, did you know I had the first video game, Pong?
On Atari. No, it was its own.
No,
It's a standalone system. That's
standalone
right.
system, and it
That's
didn't
right.
even keep score. Boop, boop, boop.
Uh,
I paid that game forever, and it didn't have where you could play by yourself. You always had to have an opponent. But anyway, I'm getting off. The more the digital world consumes us, and mostly now AI will consume us, the more there will be a void for the human to human connection.
hmm,
Now, let me tell you where I found this. I told you I was researching for Church Answers, and I found that that particular aspect of helping churches and church leaders was what was missing most, person to person, instead
hmm,
of a software or something like this. And I'm not going to give you all the specificity of it because bore you to death, and there are other reasons too. But the point is, I saw the greatest opportunity for us to help churches to be more person to person instead of
hmm.
software or something that can scale better.
Okay.
And that's not me.
Okay.
I'm not looking for person to person.
Yeah, you're an introvert. So when I think back to, and just over the past 50 years of the American culture, there's been key distinctives of every generation, and there's been key trajectories of every generation, but the church has always been there to respond.
Mm-hmm.
That you could go through just the different things, what the 60s brought, what the 70s brought, what the 80s brought. And there's always, the church has always needed to be there, or should be there, to respond. What you're saying now, AI in the church needs to be ready to respond to a generation that has become so disconnected in a way they've
Totally.
never been before.
Totally.
I just think of our, what we've done here at our church, particularly in our student ministry. We made a very strategic decision once a month to create a social night for our students.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking middle school and high school, our students. And so we were like, well, you're just gonna have a party once a month, and the idea is like, well, why are you doing that? They need connection
More
so
than
badly.
the people asking the question need it
So badly, because particularly, I mean, this generation is getting more and more involved, and I'm hearing it from my freshmen in high school how much AI is entering into the education world,
mm-hmm.
And the things are being used. It's happening. And you're writing about it. You're writing a book about it. The anxious generation goes to church.
Mm-hmm.
But how is your church already planning to respond to a generation and adults who are drastically, unknowingly disconnected?
That's my book.
Yeah,
that's my thesis.
So again, student ministry, if you're doing this, maybe you have to look at them. How can you be more intentional about them building connection? And that is our highest attended night of the week, of the month. We do it once a month, and all the students come for that, because they're being with their peers, and it's amazing is that they're not on their phones a lot that night. I know anytime we do any type of like student retreat or student camp, we actually, we'll take their phones, and the students are like, "Oh, thank you." Like they're ready to get disconnected. It's absolutely amazing. And for adults as well. By the time this podcast comes out, my church family will be going on a digital fast
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now, understand that means immediate family. It does not mean extended family.
I'm saying my church family.
Oh, your church. Oh, me too.
My church family, the church at Spring Hill, is going to be going on a digital fast, which includes you, because we're gonna start off the year talking about who we are as a church and how we are connected to each other.
You know that I don't use my phone anymore in worship services.
That's right.
I turn it off as a deliberate decision because I was looking over the shoulder of one of our fellow church members, and I thought that he was following the service on his phone, and he was looking at scores from the previous night football games. Mm-hmm. So, then I wanted to look at them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. If it's college football, I don't blame him, whoever that was.
My point is, I know my own temptations, and I know my addiction and dependency to just a smartphone, much less anything AI. Of course, AI and smartphone are coming together right now, and so I have begun a self-fast, but it's only during the worship service.
Okay, that's great. That's great. But the whole point we're making this is that the church has to be ready to respond. There's an opportunity to demonstrate this value in the human-to-human connection like never before. The next opportunity I think we as a church have is the opportunity to remind people of the true power of God. AI is powerful. Too powerful in some ways. It's powerful. How can the church begin to even, if you're a local church pastor, how would you begin to even demonstrate the true power of God?
All right. First of all, hold that question.
Okay.
I want to come right back to it.
All right.
But I have one more comment on human to human.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then I want to come back to your question. So just remember the question you just asked me and ask it again. Some of the fastest growing ministries in American church life are person to person. Let me give you an example. You've heard of the company, the ministry organization, Upward Sports.
Yeah.
They are almost totally person to person. It's about having a sports league that your church is the owner of, whether you have a grass field or maybe a few churches have a gym or just a parking lot, and they have all these different sports, and they teach you how to reach your community through sports.
Yep.
Now, I've heard of Upward for some time. We're talking about visitor reach. That's new. Upward's been around for some time, but now they are really coming on strong because their ministry is person to person. I mean, sure, they're going to use a computer to register, and they're going to use technology, but the ultimate ministry there is in person.
Yep.
And that's why they're growing so fast. And that's why we're hearing about them more and more. Back to your question.
Yeah, no, I think Upward is great, and I know that we at Church Answers have a connection with them as well, and if you have that opportunity, yeah, totally connect with Upward as well.
This is a good segue, you got to admit.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. All right, so back to the question. We're talking about opportunities. We're talking about challenges. We're talking about different things, AI in the church. My question was, there's an opportunity. This is a pastoral shepherding opportunity. As AI gets more and more powerful, opportunity to remind people of the true power of God. What are some ways that they can do that?
I could do a whole podcast on this, and
Okay.
you and I may do this, but I want to go back to what my pastor does quite often. That would
Okay.
be you. As you are reading the scripture, as you complete reading the scripture, you typically say something to the effect of, remember, people, this is God's word.
Mm-hmm.
This is God speaking to us.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I've heard you say that countless times, it is a moment of awe, reverence, and even contemplation. Wow, the creator of the universe is speaking to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Getting people in the word, sermonically, small group, all these ways. The more they're in the word, the more they're going to see where the real power is. And it's not AI.
Mm.
And whether it's the God of the Philistines or the true God of Israel, they're going to see which one is the biggest God. And we don't have to do a whole lot with that methodologically, except get them into the word. And the opportunities are multifold there. That's
Mm-hmm.
one thing I found out in my research for The Anxious Generation Goes to Church. I said, I didn't know that about the Bible. I didn't know that. And it's something that is not just, oh, I found out a new fact. It is something that really they embrace as a new type of awe of what God can do. You get them in the Word, and AI is going to seem puny
Mm.
compared to that.
Hebrews 4:12. For the
Yeah,
word of God is alive and powerful. It is sharper than the sharpest two-edged sword, cutting between soul and spirit, between joint and marrow. And then here it is. It exposes our innermost thoughts and desires.
yep,
God's word is a soul penetrating word. AI is not.
it is. It is not. And we don't have to push that hard. All we have to do is let them be exposed to God through His Word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too, it goes back to even at my church. I've seen my church family just hungry.
Absolutely.
They want it, and there's power. Like and two, I think the hunger is comes and just people see the power in that. When you're hungry and for God's word, you're hungry to worship Him. It demonstrates this power that exists, and you what you experience on a soul level when you're together with your church family, when
Mhm.
God's word is being read and taught, when people are singing and giving God glory. There's nothing else like it in this world. Um, I had a recent conversation with someone who came to Christ at the church at Spring Hill and just kind of begun some discipleship. And they asked the question like, why do you raise your hands in worship? And she said, I've been wanting to ask you for a while. And she goes, I was at a concert recently and I got my answer. She goes, I found myself in the middle of a crowd to this person just raising my hands. And it was like, it was this new Christian and said, but it wasn't the same as church.
Mm.
It wasn't the same as coming to church. And so she's like, now I understand why you raise your hands. It's this, there's power in it. And so AI has its limitations, even
True.
though it feels big. And you can watch all the sci-fi movies of what's going to happen. Nothing will replace the true power of God, who's omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent.
Mm.
All right, AI in the church. There are seemingly, and here's the segue, there are seemingly unlimited AI-powered resources for greater church efficiencies, education, and administration. Seemingly unlimited AI
Yeah,
power.
it seems like it because we're being inundated with it. And the more we discover AI, the more AI advances, the more we're going to see those. It could be as simple as creating a blurb for a bulletin. It could
Hmm.
be something like uh, proofreading something that is going to go out in communication. It could be something that is more complex. It's going to replace some people, Jess, in all organizations. And I'm not going to start spelling out who it might replace, and don't want to get anybody agitated, even though I have some of my ideas. But it's not going to replace the church. It's not going to replace the people. But you can do we're doing so much at Church Answers with AI than just a year ago. But we have to understand clearly where the boundaries are as we do this. And
Yeah.
that's why we put those boundaries out to begin with. That's just on content generated AI. There's a lot more. You and I were talking about some awful things that have happened with AI and kids,
Right.
and we know the downside there. But like the internet, I can't imagine you and me not using the internet today, but that doesn't mean that it still is not used for evil out there as well.
Right.
Find
Yeah.
the good things. Find
Hmm.
the good things that are being used. We've mentioned two. I won't call them opposite organizations as comparison, but the way they do ministry is significantly different. There's visitor reach that is just internet, digital, particularly AI saturated, and then there's Upward Sports that is really person to person. But here's the thing about it: Upward Sports uses digital means, and Visitor Reach gets people together,
Right.
and they keep that in person connected and in God. So we could go on and on about the ways that you can use AI in your church. But here's the thing about it: 6 months from now, when someone's listening to it, they'll say, "This is dated."
Mm. Yeah, but I do think there are some practical things that will have a little bit longer time frame. I think one of the most things, well, that's two things that we're doing here at the Church of Spring Hill, is we are using AI powered platforms. That doesn't mean we're using AI for this, but AI powered platforms for guest follow up.
Mm,
And so this is a system that can operate faster, especially, we're not a huge church by any means, and so we are limited in some of the things we can do, but AI allows us to move faster in some of our guest follow up. Again, we're not using AI is not generating the follow up. We're using an AI generated platform
I
that
get it.
takes our work and enhances it and makes it faster.
Yeah,
And so there's a lot of different ways out there. You can do that with some guest follow up. Many of the church management softwares I'm starting to see are starting to have AI introduced into their platform. So even if you're using a church management software, there's a good chance you may be using AI just because it's integrated into your software.
it just shows up at times.
Yeah. The other thing we do is we have a software that we use for prayer, and so people have the ability to text in prayer, and we use AI to take we generated the content, but based off certain things that are said in the prayer request, we give an immediate response.
Mm,
We're not acting like we're a real person or anything like that. It could be as simple as like, thank you so much for submitting your prayer request. Um, you know, we're going to pass this along to a member of the team, so they get an instant response. So it doesn't feel like they submitted something and it's like 8 hours, 10 hours, 24 hours before they hear back from someone. There's an initial connection. That's AI powered response that we have given that AI does for us on our behalf. Because prayer can be time sensitive. And two, that platform has certain tags. So if someone puts in a certain prayer request, it alerts us faster. Like, hey, this one's urgent. And so it allows us to respond faster.
I like
Because
that. I didn't know we were doing that.
yeah. There's different things we do with that, and then we use also AI powered platform for a lot of our church wide campaigns. I know we did the gratitude challenge as a church.
Hmm.
While I generated the content, I let an AI powered platform send my content out for me.
Yeah,
So there's things like that. You can begin to find greater efficiencies in your how you're operating as a church using the power, but not necessarily using the brains.
I like it. I
Yeah.
like it.
Last one here, AI plagiarism. Now, kind of ending on one that's like, this is maybe a caution. This is a caveat here. AI plagiarism is becoming increasingly problematic. I mentioned too earlier in this podcast that I'm seeing it in my son's education. He's not using it, but he's like, Dad, did you know you can do this? Hey, can I just put this in there? I'm like, no, you're not learning. You're not using your brain. No, you're not allowed to do that. And great. He was just more curious. So he wasn't actually trying to utilize, like,
My
I could,
grandson is more than curious. He's brilliant. He's great. He's sweet. He's godly. He's near perfect.
he's an awesome kid. He really is. He's an awesome young man. He's a freshman now, so he's not a kid anymore. He's a young man. Um, how do you, if you're a local church pastor, how do you guard yourself of potential plagiarism?
I say go to extremes. Let me
Okay.
explain that. Here's what we know already. AI already has the ability to scrape the internet, including sermons that have been put on the internet through streaming or through in other communication forms like writing. It has the ability to do that. It has the ability to compare that to other things that are out there. In other words, the all the technology is there, if not already being used, to pick up sermons that are plagiarized in part or in full.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard for many years about pastors preaching a sermon, and it gets on, then someone hears the same sermon when they go online, and a famous preacher preaches it, and they get caught that way. Well, those are like 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 that get caught. This will soon be 1 in 1 or
Mm-hmm.
100 of 100. And there will be those who don't like the church that will use this as a way to hurt the witness of the church. So I say go to an extreme to make sure you are not plagiarizing, even negligent or inadvertent.
Mm-hmm.
So inadvertent plagiarism, you're typing something and you may have heard it and there's a phrase and you put it in there, or maybe someone else did, and all of a sudden it's in your sermon. Do a plagiarism check. I do a plagiarism check of everything I put out to the public, not because I think I'm plagiarizing, but because I know that I could be putting something down that's in my mind that wasn't original with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I say go to the extreme. Take the occasion to make sure that you're not putting out anything that's not your original content, and it's very simple to do that. I mean, if it's a written document, almost all the softwares that are AI powered for written documents have plagiarism checks,
Mm-hmm.
and if I get above 3%, I then go to AI and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I found out this was plagiarized. Can you tell me what it is and what I need to be looking for?"
Yeah. Yeah. And too, what I do is because I read sermons, I listen to sermons, like I'm in commentaries. Um, too, what I do is I just, anytime I go to a source and I read it, I just put it in a footnote.
If you
Um,
know you're doing it.
or I just put it in a footnote.
I mean, if you know you're doing a source, if you know you're doing Alistair Begg or whatever. I'm
Well,
saying
well,
there's some of them
what
don't
I'm saying
even
is, even if I go to, if I read something, I'll just throw it in a footnote. Like, even if I don't know necessarily that I took anything from it,
right.
I just almost like a works cited page. Um, it's just a way to go, like, if for some reason, yeah, I read all this stuff as I sermon prep, and it's maybe something that I'd read that stuck that I didn't realize that was from someone else. I at least put a URL, or just even in a notes, you know, listen to this sermon. It's a way just to cover up, like, yeah, I wasn't trying. Plagiarism is trying to act like someone else's idea is your own,
Correct.
and so that just covers me. That's like, okay, yeah, I may have accidentally done that, and I will do, I just want to cover my bases, that, like, if I read this and somehow something showed up inadvertently, at least I referenced and gave credit that I went to that source. So it's super easy to do. Just copy and paste the URL, put it, add a footnote. Easy to do.
Well, we probably really blown some minds with this. So, at some point you got to say there's so much more we could say, but we're not going to say it. I did neglect to mention something when we were talking about the desire for people to have in-person connection. The most significant study of this in the 21st century is a book called Bowling Alone.
Hmm.
Bowling Alone, and we'll put that in. It's a big, thick thing. I think I got it over here. Yeah. Uh, and you can see how thick it is.
That's a big
And
one.
it is a big one. And you, if you just want to look at some of his notes, there they are.
Oh my goodness.
So, anyway, Robert Putnam wrote this book, and he's talking about the collapse of American community. He's hopeful there, revival. but he was talking about the collapse of American community. And I think the publication the date of this is 2000. He was very prophetic in this. And what he said has happened. And my whole point goes back to people and God are a lot more important and powerful than
Right.
AI. So
Yep.
that's just what I want to mention. And I'll let you close it out, Jess.
Yeah, no, going back to one of our things is just this is an opportunity to remind people who God is. AI is it's here to stay, and who knows what's going to happen. But there's opportunities. End of the day, your people are hungry for community, and they're hungry for community with each other, and they're hungry for community with God. And so, as a church leader, continue to use those potential resources that are available to make things more efficient and make you operate better. But at the same time, be ready as a church leader. Be thinking ahead how you can respond to a generation that has grown up with technology, with social media, and now with AI, how you can be prepared to reach them and remind them about who the one true God is. So we want to close and just thank Cheney Associates. We talk about them, and we often use the tagline, they are the accounting firm for the church.
Because
And
they are.
so if you have any accounting needs, again, this is kicking off the year. If you're thinking, hey, there's a great, I need someone to help out with the books this year in 2025, go reach out to Cheney Associates, ask them, just go and just do a discovery call. How can you help? Just get on there and just talk to them. I think you'll be surprised about what they can offer. So thank you for them. Thank you for Cheney Associates being a sponsor of this podcast. Great to kick off 2025 with you.
Absolutely.
And I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about the listeners,
I knew what you
Dad.
were talking about. You
So
weren't looking at me. You were looking away from my eyes. I saw it.
the listeners, so glad you guys are here with us. It's going to be a fantastic year of
Yes.
2025, and looking forward to just talking church, talking ministry, what it means for those of you who have church questions. We're excited here that we can help you find some answers. That's why we're called Church Answers. So thank you so much for being with us here. We look forward to a great year. Have a great New Year's.